we had created a product that worked, but it was kind of only a product that a mother could love. So I believe most of us had been kicked out.
And she did.
Yes, true. I think most of us at that time had been kicked out of more bicycle dealers than most of the listeners have ever been in their lives. And that teaches you great humility, and humility teaches you the ability to listen.
Joining us in the studio today is a very pleasant surprise. Stan Day and FK Day from SRAM and World Bicycle Relief. The two of them co-founded SRAM way back in the day and have gone on to build an empire of amazing cycling components and humanitarian relief through the power of bicycles. Please welcome, again, Stan Day and FK Day. Hey guys.
Hi there.
Greetings, Dave.
So good to see you. This is a rare, fun surprise, right? The 50th episode of Changing Gears, having you guys on the show. It's almost meant to be. I know you're calling in from Chicago because I just ran down to your studio, about 100 meters away from me. But it's so great to have you guys in the house and recording this with us. You know, the SRAM story has been told many, many times all around the world. And I thought for this show, we might do something a little different, right? We don't need to talk about the SRAM story. We might talk a little bit about the World Bicycle Relief story, but the SRAM story has been told. I think what our listeners might be more interested in is hearing some of the nuance to what made SRAM a success, how you guys led FK, how you spun off World Bicycle Relief, and some of those kinds of things. So I just want to sort of jump in and ask each of you guys, what do you think some of the challenges were in the early days to scaling up a company like SRAM? And we'll take this sort of pre-World Bicycle Relief. You know, early days of SRAM, what were some of those scale-up challenges?
Well, FK, maybe I'll start. I think we hit the scale-up challenges, right out of the box when I had predicted that the first year we were going to sell 100,000 systems, and we ended up selling only 800 pieces, and that was a real scale-up problem. And one of the things that we had to do at that time was believe in ourselves and decide to keep the organization going and keep trying. It's a classic situation where we went into a business environment, we fell flat on our face, and we had to pick ourselves up and reboot and keep going. And so part of the scaling challenge, when I think back, was figuring out what was the right product that actually would sell in the marketplace. The first product we had that didn't sell according to the business plan worked. It worked really well. It was just that the market didn't want it. And it took us 2 to 3 years of persistence to really get there. So I think that was our first scale-up challenge, was to figure out something that the market would actually want to buy.
Stan, you recruited FK and 4 other guys to help build the business, right? And FK's responsibility back in the day was product development, right? FK, what were some of your challenges in scaling that engine up?
I think the probably one of the most important parts, and I think it goes back to what Stan was talking about, was that we had created a product that worked, but it was kind of only a product that a mother could love. So I believe most of us had been kicked out.
And she did.
Yes, true. I think most of us at that time had been kicked out of more bicycle dealers than most of the listeners have ever been in their lives. And that teaches you great humility, and humility teaches you the ability to listen. So listening really closely to those people that were using our products helped us evolve what was eventually going to be the first successful product that we launched.
And FK, let's stay there for a minute. What would you consider that first most successful product? What was that?
I would say that the product that gave us a bit of a lifeline was first the one that you would allow people to drill their handlebars and put them up on the end of triathlete bars. So we sold enough of those to give us confidence and get our name out on the street. But I would say that the first really successful one was the one on mountain bike handlebars, a twist shifter on the inside of the mountain bike handlebars.
Yeah, and Dave, it was the SRT 100, and the SRT, as FK talks about listening, was the feedback we had gotten about our prior shifters was the size was too large, the rotation was too long, and the transition between the shifter and the stationary grip was too abrupt. And so we combined those two into size, rotation, transition, SRT, to really be the focus of our product development. And we got there.
Grip Shift really was the first product line and line extension of SRAM. And for several years, you produced variations of SRT shifters and other shifters along the way. And you really built SRAM around a single product line. Walk us through the thinking to extend beyond shifters. I mean, your business plan never talked about derailleurs and acquisitions. Your business plan just talked about shifters. So what went on in your mind to say, we should probably make some more products?
Well, we were a real rocket ship in the early 90s, and I think it was 1991 we shipped 500,000 systems, and that was the first big success for the SRT 100. And the next year we shipped 2 million systems, then 5 million systems, then 8.5 million systems. It was incredible. And along the way, all of those systems were working with Shimano drivetrain. That would be Shimano derailleurs, Shimano cassettes, Shimano chain. And it was very apparent to us that we were really exposed at the time to somebody else's components and how they were working. One of the magical things that we had to get over with our shifters was understand what we called the actuation ratio of the Shimano derailleurs, so that we could be pulling the right increments of cable. Each year we were really nervous because when we get our hands on the earliest Shimano model year derailleurs we could find, and we'd measure them like crazy to just verify that we still had the right amount of cable pull in our shifters. So we knew that we wanted to be in charge of the system at some point, but we didn't have the technical know-how to really figure out how to get there. And, that was one of the really great things about the Sachs bicycle division becoming available to acquire. And we did that in 1997. And when we acquired the Sachs bicycle division, there were two big value elements for us. One was this business of internal gear hubs, and Sachs at the time was the largest producer of internal gear hubs, which is a drivetrain used predominantly in Europe. But the other was it came with an engineering group of 60 German engineers that knew how to bash metal and design products that were fabricated out of metal, heat treating, forgings, all those kinds of things, which we needed to understand, and we didn't have that knowledge internally in order to get into the other components on the bike. And so that was a huge step for us.
Also say that there were some people that said, you guys have done great. You should sell the company and just get out of the industry and take your money and go sit on a beach somewhere. And, we kind of looked at each other and we said, no, we're putting everything back in and we're going to build out the rest of the bike.
We're going to leapfrog way ahead to modern day, as opposed to sort of cataloging acquisitions and organic growth. Let's just jump forward to today. And let's look back, you guys. Together with numerous employees around the world, team members, in the thousands. You guys have built this incredible organization. The Harvard Business Review would do an amazing case study on SRAM. And one of the things they might pull out is, what do you think the 3 keys to success were looking back? Like, what was the magic? What was the secret sauce to what you guys have built along with everyone else?
Dave, I would start off with the basics. It starts off, clearly with, hard work and commitment. I mean, it was 7 days a week in the early years. I don't think we made it to Christmas vacation until about the 4th year, because we're just working through it. And at the time, there was a January trade show. We just worked through it. It was hard work and commitment was number one. In fact, one of the sayings I used with the team was one that I'd heard from this one famous leader of a sailing team. And he said, it's not the commitment that counts, it's the commitment to the commitment that counts. And we were there. We were just all committed to grow the organization and to be successful. There's probably a little bit of fear of failure kicking us in the tail as well. So I think that was one. I think the other was, or another would be having radical integrity. And we really needed that as we grew the business around the world and across oceans. And it came naturally to us, and we certainly had been advised growing up that integrity was important. However, it wasn't until we were trying to manage an organization around the globe, across the water, and trusting people that we weren't next to, that it really became clear how important integrity was. And so I call radical integrity was another one.
It's a good one.
That's a good one.
Related to that, if I just throw out a third one that occurs to me, was the culture. And there's Peter Drucker says that culture eats strategy for breakfast. And it was instinctual to us. It wasn't something that we put up on the whiteboard and said, look, how do we want to build our culture? But we wanted to have a group that trusted each other, that liked working together, and that was really committed to the future. And that occurred naturally. And that today, I think, is one of the strongest foundations that we have as an organization.
Totally agree. The only thing I'd expound upon it just a little bit more would be we were surrounded by outstanding people. We hired carefully. We found people that were, I don't think we were crazy, but they had to be as crazy as we were. Many people left outstanding jobs to come and work with us on the possibility that we were onto something really important in an industry that we all cared so deeply about. So we were surrounded by these passionate, people, and we let it rip, and it was unstoppable is the wrong word, because you never stand in a boat and say your boat won't sink, but we were pretty unstoppable with the team we had. I'd go into any situation with those folks, and they were empowered and a joy to be around.
Yeah. I love that you said radical integrity, Stan. And I like that one. And having worked at SRAM for quite a while, I see that. And it really starts from the top. And, I want to acknowledge both of you guys. I've been fortunate enough to meet some of your family members, including your mom and dad. And I got to believe that, it's such a strength of yours and your families, and you guys led that, and it just penetrated through the organization, right? And you recruited like-minded individuals, and that's a great one. We're going to jump back in time a little bit now to 2004, 2005-ish, right? Eastern Asian tsunami wipes out, hundreds of thousands of lives. FK is leading product development at SRAM at the time. And FK, if you could just briefly walk us through the genesis of World Bicycle Relief, because then I'm going to ask you a follow-up question, which is what your roles are today. But for our audience, I think they need to understand that the first, 15 or 20 years of your life at SRAM, you were head of product development. But then this big tsunami hits. And I want to just understand, I think our listeners want to understand what happened. How does FK pivot like that?
Well, I think that the genesis came from all of us hurting so much deep inside from witnessing the horrible tragedy. And I could feel it as I was walking around in our different offices, and it occurred to me that, well, we as an organization could go around and raise money and send it to the Red Cross, or maybe we could do something much more impactful. So the thought came up that, the infrastructure shot, people, are struggling to get around. I'm sure they need bicycles. Why don't we, as a bicycle company, deliver bicycles into the hardest hit areas? So that was the genesis. And I called around to all of the leading relief organizations working in, Indonesia and Sri Lanka, and proposed doing a large-scale bicycle program for them. And 100% of them said, no, just send us your money. And I was like, that doesn't seem right. So Leah Misbakte and I flew over to Indonesia and Sri Lanka and interviewed the relief organizations on the ground. And they said, what? You can do a large-scale bicycle program? It would be unbelievable. And nobody was doing it, which seemed unbelievable to me. So
Right.
we rallied the team and delivered 24,000 bikes, and the impact was just off the charts.
And so on the heels of that, FK, you built World Bicycle Relief.
Yeah, I would say it wasn't just me. It was, SRAM, the bicycle industry, Leah, so yes, I was there, but it was
Yeah.
more than me.
Well, said similarly, on the heels of that, World Bicycle Relief was built, right? And it has grown also, like SRAM, into a massive organization that's delivered, more than 800,000, nearly 900,000 bikes to people in need. So that was in 2004, 2005, right, that it started?
Yep.
So now fast forward to today, guys. Two big organizations, one sort of nonprofit humanitarian focused, the other for-profit, also humanitarian focused, but for performance cycling. What do you guys do today? What is your job title? If I were to pull your business card title, we'll start with you, Stan. What is your job title today, and what do you do?
Yeah, well, first of all, I don't think we have business cards any longer, but but maybe just back on one point on World Bicycle Relief. The one thing that FK and I got present to as FK was building World Bicycle Relief was that the most important thing to help World Bicycle Relief succeed was that SRAM was successful so that it could then support World Bicycle Relief. And again, as FK said, it wasn't just SRAM that was doing that, but SRAM was an important part of it. And FK was really clear with our group that the first thing that has to happen is SRAM has to be successful. And then that gives us the running room to focus on World Bicycle Relief. So I thought that was really good. Now, you took a bunch of our engineers, which I didn't like, but
Oops.
Stan, as you say that, if SRAM was more successful 10 years earlier, would it have been then possible that you would have started a purpose-driven entity?
I don't know. That's a hypothetical. I don't know.
Yeah.
But we clearly had some altitude at the time, and we were gaining altitude at SRAM. But it was really important that we continued to do that and we continued to be successful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's spot on. And the beauty of that is, to me, is that it gave us the ability, it gave SRAM the ability to address the needs at the very top of the bicycle market and apply their incredible knowledge and product development at the bottom of the market. And they both require the same product development process. They're just different market end uses. And I thought that was a really cool dynamic to be able to do that.
Yeah. All right. So back to the business card.
Back to the business card. Thanks, Dave. So if I had a business card today, it would say chairman. I've handed off the president CEO role to another individual. And as chairman, I'm responsible for the board of directors, which meets quarterly. And beyond that, and this concerns my wife a little bit, I still attend the weekly senior management calls and the quarterly senior management week. And she goes, "Hey, I thought you were retired." And I am, but this is the best reality show in the world. And I really just enjoy tuning in every week and for a few hours because I know the customers, I know the products, I know the team, and it's just fun to watch this team perform. It's like I have a front row seat in the bleachers at the baseball game. I love it.
FK, what's your title? What does your business card say?
If I got a paycheck, it would say PSO, profit sucking overhead. But I don't. So I serve as chairman of World Bicycle Relief, of 11 outstanding board members, and I've served on the board of SRAM since we started. So I serve at the behest of our chairman, Stan, which I have authority issues like you wouldn't believe, but I've embraced my monster. I breathe into the pain.
Nice. Sort of back to leadership and growing companies. I want to explore the area of leadership handoffs because both of you have gone through areas where you were individual contributors and building organizations and functions, and then you grew into senior leaders. And in both of your cases, you're in similar roles. You're chairman, but you could only really go into that role after a successful transition, right? Recruiting the right replacement. Tell me about some of those challenges associated with leadership handoff.
Yeah, so I think it starts with kind of a company perspective and an ownership perspective, and we have a very long-term view. We love the industry. We love what's going on with the company. And so we're really looking out for its long-term success, which is very different than I think many executive transitions that occur. I think the first thing that comes to mind about what we did was it took a long time. I mean, I think I had been in the president's seat, CEO seat for 20 plus years before I started thinking about, what do I do? How do I think about handing off leadership of the organization? And the first thing I thought about was like a track runner in a relay race. I wanted to hand the baton off going full speed. So that was one thing. And so that took time to talk to the senior management group, to talk to the board of directors about how to do it, what the vision was, what were the key factors, and how that handoff was actually going to occur. So I think I probably spent 3 years to 4 years thinking about it, floating the idea with the senior management team and thinking through how to do it. when we went to recruit for the new senior manager, for the new CEO president, we were very specific that the first thing we were looking for was a culture fit, because we didn't want some brilliant person that came in that destroyed the culture, which we thought was the best thing we had going for us. And in fact, we spent a lot of time looking around senior management going, do we have somebody in the company that can take us to where we want to go? And ultimately, the senior management team, the board, and myself all agreed that we wanted to look for somebody that was actually in the space to where we were going, as opposed to do what we had done for the last 25 years, which was figure it out as we grew, because none of us had been in the space we grew into. And so culture was the first thing we were looking for as we went out to recruit. And that was the big criteria. And when we found Ken Loosberg and settled on Ken Loosberg over a number of other candidates, that was the factor that differentiated Ken. And we were super thrilled. When Ken came on, he came on as COO, and senior management and the board and I all knew he was going to elevate to CEO in a year or so. And the rest of the organization did not know, although it may have suspected. And after a year and a half, Ken and myself and the senior management group and the board said, it's time to move Ken in. So we were able to hand the baton off running full speed around the track. And it was really cool. And Ken's still running full speed, thank God.
Yeah. Would you say that that's, before we get to FK, because I'm curious what FK's, leadership handoff challenges are. Stan, would you say that that is rare in the business world, that companies take that much time and that much thought and intention to hand off the baton when running at full speed?
I think it is. I've been told it is. And I've been told by the recruiters and our board members that they have not seen a handoff this successful in their careers. So we'll take that.
FK, over to you. Similar, when you spun off and helped build World Bicycle Relief, you were at some point, you were call it the president, and then that organization grew, and you too had to, evolve the leadership at World Bicycle Relief. And so what were some of your thoughts about how you might do that?
I would say the first thing that comes to my mind is that when you bring in someone that high up in an organization from the outside, it is incredibly risky. And we've experienced bringing in top-notch people, and they get in and there's, organ rejection, no matter how deeply we onboarded them and how thoughtfully we onboarded them. So whenever you bring in someone that high up, it's super risky. So even though we did a massive search for the current CEO, using outside headhunters and all of that, I really had my eye on one of our top guys that had basically started in Zambia and built up our infrastructure there. He was like-minded to both Stan and myself, business background, 15 years in venture capital and in finance, incredibly committed, same core values. And then he put in 9 years in Zambia and South Africa. So he knew the organization top to bottom. We knew him inside and out. He had demonstrated incredible savvy and commitment to the organization and to what we were trying to do. As we did do a search, so we casted the net wide, but it was obvious that this guy
Yeah.
was outstanding. So you could go, wow, you're so smart. It's like, no, I would say we were just damn lucky that that we had grown someone outstanding from the inside the organization.
I have an insider's view also. Um, once you finally did decide, you also allowed a nice long overlap, right? Where you didn't just throw Dave the keys, right? You drove together for a while.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. And quite frankly, we had a couple of other intern quasi CEOs that came in for, we were kind of giving them a test drive, and it was bam, no worky, no worky.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lots of great people, but Dave was the complete package.
Guys, I want to pivot now a little bit to the topic of innovation. Earlier you both mentioned a lot of amazing values. And it's hard to say whether innovation is a value or not, but let's just call it a value for now for the sake of argument. But clearly innovation plays a massive role in what both of you do. I'm curious again to hear from both of you about your position on innovation, its importance, and how hard it is. So first, Stan.
Do you want to go?
Yeah, I'll have a quick thought, and Stan will have a much more complete thought. Innovation is part of the culture, and the way it's demonstrated and nurtured within our culture is our commitment to listening to the marketplace, yet also our commitment to leading into areas that carry significant risk and doing things that other people aren't doing. So innovation is a blend of, serving the end user's needs, but also taking some risks where you don't have a complete answer. And I believe that our culture, so going back to culture, really embraces that attitude of innovation. And if we're not failing, then we're not pushing it out as far as we can. We're striving to surprise and delight people, and to delight ourselves. We're riders. We ride mountain bikes and road bikes and gravel bikes, and so we have a rough idea, but we lean so heavily on the marketplace and the racers for innovation. So it's a very exciting environment to be in. It's like our lifeblood. It pumps full of oxygen.
Stan, tell us more about innovation.
So it is our lifeblood. I think for many of us, if not everyone at SRAM, it's one of the most exciting things to get up to in the morning. It's like, what's going to be different? What's going to be new? What's going to be better? And we've created a culture where people can have ideas that they can experiment with, and their ideas will be listened to in terms of new product development. Now, they're not always acted on, and oftentimes people are, get it wrong, but we get it right as well. And that's really neat. I think from a business standpoint as well, innovation has been critical to our success. And I'm not sure they teach you this in business school, but if there is a really strong brand dominant player in an industry, and you're trying to compete against them, and you're offering the same product of equivalent performance as that company, you're not going to get a lot of business. You have to create something that's not only different but better. And it's in the fight to do that you actually move the industry forward. And you have a lot of fun doing it. So I think innovation has been core to our success. It's why we get up in the morning, and it's been a lot of fun.
Some people like to liken new products to children. developing a new product, the product develops an identity, and you love all your products equally. At SRAM, we've made hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of products throughout the years. I'm curious if either of you guys have any favorites throughout the years.
Well, the mountain bike grip shift did put us on the map. So that was a good one.
Yeah.
I think beating Shimano in an antitrust lawsuit opened up the entire market to everybody for innovation, and that allowed mountain bikes to just explode. Without having done that, the mountain bike industry would have strangled and just died, or not died, but it would have, there would have been no innovation. I would say one by eliminating the front derailleur is like one of my deep favorites at SRAM. The Buffalo bicycle would be one of my deep favorites at World Bicycle Relief. But
yeah,
the one by drivetrain is by far the coolest thing.
Stan, you got any favorites?
Well, I just remember FK's probably beginning of the year 2000 when we were just getting into derailleurs, and Shimano made a pretty decent front derailleur, and we were having trouble matching the performance. FK's mantra at the time became, let's eliminate the front derailleur. And we went from, back in that day, there were three chain rings on the front. And we went from 3 chain rings. We led the way to 2 by in the front.
2 by.
And then FK finally got to celebrate when we got to 1 by. And voila, the front derailleur's been dispatched, at least on the mountain bike side, and certainly on some gravel bikes. But that was an exciting one, and that was one that FK beat the drum loudest in our senior management group on. So thanks for doing that, FK, on behalf of the industry. I think for me, I remember when Shimano came out with electronic shifting, the Di2 system, and we did not have it. My view at the time was, well, we have to sell what we have, which was mechanical shifting for road component groups. And so we said it loud and we said it proud, and at the same time we were working on electronics in the background. I was just so impressed when our team came out with ETAP, the wireless shifting. It was really remarkable. And Dave, you said something early on in the question to the effect of, how do you guys participate in innovation today? And the fact is that I don't. It's gotten way beyond my knowledge. What I do with respect to innovations, I try and support the organization to enable those people that really understand the products and the markets and the engineering to create these innovative products.
I mean, I remember when we went through that, the safest route would be for us to have just followed copying Shimano on that product. But our guys, they said, wait, I just give us a little bit more time. And we're going, I don't think we have any more time. But they say, give us more time to figure this out. And that's when they came out with the wireless shifting and ETAP. And to me, that's the magic of the culture. And that is that they wanted to take the risk. They took the risk and knocked it out of the park.
I want to switch now to another topic, which is continuous improvement. Sometimes I see a blurry line between innovation and continuous improvement. I'd be curious to hear from you guys on the differences and the value that continuous improvement adds to an organization over, let's say, something like innovation.
Well, that's a great question. Back in the 90s, the book Lean Thinking came out, and I read that and I thought that was a pretty good philosophy. And I bought a bunch of books and I handed them out to the management team, and most of them said they read the book and they thought it was pretty good as well. But we didn't really know how to implement continuous improvement organization wide. And it really wasn't until Ken joined the organization. He had had a lot of experience with continuous improvement and doing enterprise wide implementations. And so he took us through that, and it required a commitment of resources that I would have never had the confidence to make, that Ken made just instinctively, naturally, and frankly, immediately. And it's been fantastic. And so I would say innovation is about making your product better or different, and continuous improvement is about making the processes to deliver that product to your customers more streamlined and more effective.
I guess the only thing I'd add is that when Ken came on board and created a function within SRAM called continuous improvement, and I think Ken and Stan talk to each other and go, how do we resource this thing? And Ken goes, I want to have 10 of your A players out of every single function within the organization for 18 months. And I know I was like, that was a breathtaking request. But I think one of the most brilliant things we've done from an organizational strength and learning. And it's created a culture of learning and a thirst for learning and a thirst for getting better. And it's amazing.
Yeah, the continuous improvement function here at SRAM is incredible, and the value they add. I keep thinking about, Stan, I think it's Porter's definition of strategy, which is, the things that you do different that add value to your competitor or your competition, right? And you shared that, customers. You shared that with the senior leadership team, and we often cite it. There's a thread to innovation there. There's a thread to continuous improvement there. There's a thread to just overall SRAM strategy, right? You talk about listening to customers and adding value. It's almost like that definition was written for us.
Yeah, it is my favorite business article. What is Strategy by Michael Porter? And if those of you listening haven't read it and you're interested, you'll enjoy it. It's really good. And I think articles resonate with you when you recognize things in them that have some relationship to what you're doing. And so I think what a strategy did for us is that we were doing some of those things, but it gave us a tool to amplify them. And it gave us a framework to create cohesion out of what was our instinct. And I think it was really helpful in that way.
Guys, one of the things that our audience at Changing Gears loves about this show is they get to know the people and our guests that we have on the show, in this case, yourselves. And sometimes we cross over from business into the personal world. And if you wouldn't mind, I would like to ask just a few personal questions so that our audience just can get to know you. And we're going to stay on books. If I were to visit either one of your homes and look on your nightstand, if you keep books on your nightstand, what might you be reading these days that you'd feel comfortable sharing with our audience?
Well, I read a ton of business books, and one of my best sources for books is John Burkett Trek. And he's given me a number of good ones to read. Most recent one he gave me was, I think it was The Life and Times of Gerald Ford, which is now queued up on my Kindle, but I haven't I haven't started. I'm looking forward to getting into that next week.
FK, anything hot on your nightstand or Kindle?
I don't do the Kindle thing. I like carrying around big, heavy books, and I'll usually read four at a time. Not that I read them super fast, but I like shuffling in and out. And I'll carry a business book with me wherever I go, and I'll never open it. I just can't bear the thought compared to some of the other fantastic books. So, I'll generally have a history book, a literature book, a social, a social impact book, and something else. I can't read any fiction because life is so beyond fiction that fiction sounds inauthentic. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Do you start reading about 4 a.m., don't you?
yeah,
About 4 in the morning, yeah.
yeah.
He doesn't sleep. I sleep about 10 hours a night. FK sleeps about 4.
Yeah, sleep. Yeah, FK, you're going to learn very, very soon that sleep is really important
I'm
to everything.
Yes, I'm learning that. I've found that my 7-minute naps, which would give me an entire new day, have extended to a little bit longer. And the fact that I haven't
Yeah.
like dozed off right this second just to catch little shut eye is quite rewarding.
FK, I'd like to come back to something you said about innovation, and you mentioned the Buffalo bicycle. I want to talk about the Buffalo a little bit because what I find really interesting is World Bicycle Relief didn't invent the bicycle. In fact, the bicycle had existed in all of these communities that you serve for a very, very long time. So what's so special about the Buffalo? It's got brakes, 2 wheels, a saddle, a steering a handlebar. Like, what's the big deal with the Buffalo? Why is it so darn successful?
I think it comes back to the culture we've always embraced at SRAM. It's like really get an understanding for the end user's needs. And all of the countries that we'd worked in the past had the supply chain had become separated from the end user. So if you have no understanding of the end user, the only way you can compete is by lowering price. And the markets that we entered into, or the countries we entered into, all of the bikes completely failed to serve the end user's needs. They would fall apart within a couple of weeks to a month. And then you'd have someone that has invested 6 months of their yearly income on something that's failed them. So in a way, the whole market's been stunted because of this complete detachment. But we've given, I think one of the greatest things we've done is we've given voice to the poorest people on the planet. And that has resulted in a bike that's, durable, reliable, repairable, and can meet their needs. And oddly, it costs a lot more than what's existing out there. Maybe not a lot more, but it costs more than what's existing out there. And most of the manufacturers say that no, that market only wants the lowest price bike possible. And we're like, actually, that bike doesn't work for them. And they waste all of their time and their money on it. So if you can give them something that lasts, then you've created a market. So, that to me is just a great thing that we've brought into the market, and it came. It's not as if we knew a ton about not-for-profits. We didn't actually, but we knew a little bit about bikes, and to be able to apply that to the bottom of the market was great, quite rewarding.
Yeah. Guys, we're almost out of time, but I do have one last question. It's a big one, and you can interpret it many different ways. And the question is simple. It's just what's next? So what's next for SRAM and what's next for World Bicycle Relief, or what's next for Stan and what's next for FK?
Well, let's stay on what's next for SRAM, because I'm looking out the window and it looks like what's next for me is I'm going to get wet riding home my bike. But what's next for SRAM to me is a real fascinating question, because we built this incredible world-class product development, customer-oriented organization that works around the globe with an incredible group of team members, and I can't wait to see where SRAM will be in the next 10 years. Core focus will remain in the bike industry, but there's so many places to go within the bike industry and continue to develop and serve customers. I just don't know exactly where it will go. I know what the next 3 years of product development look like, and it's super inspiring, but I can't talk about that.
What about you, FK? What's next?
Well, it appears that we've really cracked open really underseen, overlooked part of development in poor countries, and people are beginning to turn around and go, if one needs information on rural transportation, go to World Bicycle Relief, because we've got all the data. We've been studying it for 17 years now. We're putting language into the UN and the World Bank on rural transportation. And to me, that's what turns this into simply from a simply warm, fuzzy feeling to we are actually creating policy. We are changing the dynamic in rural transportation. Today, I think we'll do maybe 90,000 bikes this year. And we have 80 retail bicycle shops in multiple countries in Africa. And my hope and belief is that we'll multiply the number of bikes delivered and the number of bike shops. And my dream is that eventually we'll create a social enterprise whose profitability will cover all of the philanthropic expenses. That would be a pretty unique thing to do, but we have so far to go. I feel like we're migrating, or we're evolving from being a youth to adulthood with what we've created in World Bicycle Relief. And it's just a joy to work with the team, and we've got some good stuff in front of us.
Well, guys, it's been an honor, a privilege, a pleasure listening to your story, talking with you, hanging out with you, and thank you very much for sharing.
Dave, thank you. What a great podcast.
Have an awesome day, guys.
Okay.
Thanks.
Take care.